You think that your full schedule is being productive and is producing fruit in your life, when in actuality, your full schedule is actually creating lack in your marriage. Now, I know you're probably saying, how is that possible when I'm actually getting things done? And it's not necessarily about what you're doing, but it's the place in which you're doing it from. It's the root of where that motivation is coming from. And in this episode, I'm going to help you discover just how your productivity may be producing lack in your marriage. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Shaquila, Marriage First Business Strategist, helping wives in business implement my signature Marriage First business strategy so that they can work fewer hours, protect weekly time with their husband, and successfully launch their offers so that their business grows without competing with their marriage. God created you to be a wife and an entrepreneur. He created both marriage and business to complement each other and not contend with each other. And here we are intentional about changing the way that women live, lead, and build wealth through covenant alignment. So let's get into it. So here's what's really going on, right? It's not about what you're doing, but again, it's the place in which you're doing it from. It's that motivating factor as to why you keep your schedule so full. And if we're being honest, most women operate from a full schedule because somewhere along the lines we have associated our worth with the things that we do, with the amount of work that we do, with the amount of things that we get done, with certain titles or roles or positions that we carry. And when we operate from that manner, we are really and truly creating this environment for us to become burnt out very quickly, right? Because if I attach my worth with the amount of things I accomplish, that means if I want to increase my value or if I want to feel more worthy, then I mentally feel like I have to do more, right? I have to create more. I have to be more successful. I have to reach more goals. I have to build, more clientele. I have to reach more revenue or higher revenues in my business if I am associating my worth with productivity. And really and truly, that is not the way that God intended for things to be. God did not want things to be that you're doing more makes you feel productive, which makes you feel like you have more value. That was never what God intended. What God intended was that your worth was in your identity. And God shows us that in two places that I can think of off the top of my head. In the Bible, one of those is in Genesis 1:26 or 28, where he literally says that God created both man and woman in his image, both male and female, in his image, and that he blessed them. So, right there in the very beginning, God is telling us that he gave us value, he gave us worth when he created us as male and female. Before we did anything, before he told us to be fruitful and multiply, before he told us to replenish, before he told us to have dominion, he gave us our worth in the very beginning. We see that another example of that in Proverbs 31, verse 10, where he says a virtuous woman, her value is her worth is far more than rubies. So even in that aspect, before we talk about the virtuous woman being a wife, the virtuous woman being a mother, being an entrepreneur, helping the poor, or serving in the community, and all the things, in the very beginning of that that passage, he has already established the woman's worth. Now, I believe that God did this because he knew the plans and the tricks of the enemy. He knew that if the enemy could get inside our heads and make us feel like if we do more, then our value increases, our worth increases, then he has a direct way to keep us busy and to keep us consumed in doing things so that that pulls us away from truth, right? And truth is that God gave us our identity and therefore God gave us our worth before we do anything and before we could take on any title or any role, right? So I really and truly want you to just stop for a minute and think about how you identify with, who you are, what you do, and is that the manner in which your worth is determined? Or do you determine your worth based off of the things that you do, the things that you have accomplished, the things that you have, or the titles that you have? And really reflect on that because if you are associating your worth with outside factors, then we've got a little bit of shifting to do because that's going to lead you to burnout. And we don't want to be in burnout because burnout is going to cause us to be tired. Burnout is going to cause us to be stressed. Burnout is going to cause us to be overwhelmed. When we are stressed out, overwhelmed, and tired, that makes it much harder for us to make clear business decisions. That makes it harder for us to execute on our goals because we actually end up taking longer and taking more time to do things because we can kind of get a little bit fatigued. And most importantly, as a wife, if I am so stressed out, overwhelmed, and tired, I have no room, no energy, like nothing left for my husband. So when it comes to being there for him and having quality time and, in all honesty, having some intimacy in those moments of really and truly connecting and, giving myself over to my husband like the Bible, tells us to, I don't have anything left for that. I don't have the energy for that. I don't even really and truly have the capacity to be there in the role of a wife because I've given so much to my schedule and my business. And so that is a perfect example of how your productivity, your full schedule that you think is, making you productive and yielding fruit, and in actuality, it's yielding lack. And that lack shows up in your marriage, in your ability to have intimacy with your husband, and in your ability to be emotionally available for your husband. And in all honesty, that is not what God created marriage for. And truth be told, he created you to be a wife and an entrepreneur. So there is no reason why we should be having or experiencing this lack in our intimacy and in our marriage because that is not the way God created it, right? And so I know you're probably wondering, well, how do I fix it, right? Like if I unknowingly have attached my worth to my productivity or the things that I do, how do I change that and now make sure that my worth is tied to my identity and not the works of my hands, right? And so one of the ways that we can do that is by making sure that we start planning our schedule and the things that we do around our marriage. A lot of times when we, sit down with our planner or, we get ready to kind of figure out what we're going to do for the week or what we're doing for that day, we tend to do all of the business things and the work related things. We tend to plan that first And then we fit, our husband in somewhere in between time. And it's not intentional, but that's kind of how we typically do it, right? And that works probably for the people that don't honor covenant, probably for the people that do not love God and want to obey God and want the marriage that God, created for us in his word. But if you are a woman who is submitted to God, a woman that honors covenant, a woman that loves her husband, her marriage, that method is not going to work for you when it comes to you being a wife that is building a thriving marriage and a successful business. So, the key for you is going to be to know that your identity is not tied to anything that you are physically doing. Your identity is tied to who you are in Christ. Because before you did anything, God already created you in his image and he already blessed you. Before you did anything, God already determined that your worth is far more than rubies. Okay? And the second thing, plan your schedule around your marriage. So, what does that look like, right? Something as simple as before you put anything to do on your calendar that's related to your business or work, block out a particular time or day of the week that you are going to have uninterrupted time with your husband. It could be whatever day of the week that works for you and your husband. It could be whatever time of day that works for you and your husband. But before you put anything on that calendar, anything related to your business, a goal for that week, an appointment, whatever it is, before you put it on your calendar, I need you to put specific, exclusive time for your husband. Because guess what? You being intentional about setting aside a few minutes or a few hours, whatever you choose for your husband, that is not going to pull you away from your business. That is not going to impact your revenue in a negative way. That is not going to hinder your ability to continue to grow and build your business. That is actually going to set your business up for better success. Why? Because you are nurturing your first responsibility and your first priority, which is a covenant that you have with your husband. And when God sees that, God is going to reward that. So, just to recap, a lot of times we think that we are being productive when we keep that schedule full and we're doing all the things, but we are actually creating lack in our marriage because we have now attached our worth to the actual physical things that we are doing instead of walking and living and operating in our identity in Christ, which is where our true worth is. Okay. And so the way that we can make sure that we are operating from our identity, which is where our worth comes from, we have to make sure that we accept who we are in Christ, the way that God created us, and that is that He created us in His image and He blessed us before anything else. Second, we have to make sure that we are scheduling intentional, intimate, blocked off time with our husband. Nothing else is going on at that time but intimacy with our spouse, whether that is some bedroom time, whether that's a date night, whether it's binge watching something on Netflix, whatever it is that the two of you can just literally connect. I need you to put that on your schedule before you put an appointment, before you put a to do, before you put a lunch, anything for the week. I need you to put that time on your schedule for your husband. And then once you have that time on your schedule with your husband, then you can go and add all the other things that you need to do. Okay. I hope that you found this helpful. I hope that this blessed you. And I hope that it stretches you a little bit because the goal is that with everything that we do, we want to continue to grow in Christ, right? And so, again, I pray that this video blessed you. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel and hit the little notification bell. That way, you can stay a part of the conversation of all things marriage and business. And, you know, if you're listening to this and you're still thinking like, Shaquila, I just don't really know how to do that exactly. Or maybe you need more information. Maybe you just need a little bit more guidance. Then I encourage you, let's connect offline. Let's connect outside of this video. I have a completely free ebook that literally will show you some of the biggest mistakes that Christian wives make in business, and inside that ebook, it's going to give you more information, more strategy, and it's going to give you ways to connect with me so that I can come alongside you and help you shift the way that you view marriage and business and literally change your business structure so that your marriage and business complement each other instead of competing with each other. I pray that this blessed you, and I look forward to connecting with you offline. Until next time, God bless.